Here we go. Hi, this is Eric Stromquist. Welcome to Control Talk Now, your smart buildings videocast and podcast for the week ending January 12th, 2020. This is episode 345, where we talk about all things related to smart building controls, HVAC controls, interesting topics. We'll give you vocab words that you may not have heard. And what would a vocab word be without your co-host and mine, the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, secret agent man, Kenny Smyers, the control man and linguist from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kenny, welcome to the show. Big dog.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's they're getting more spectacular. I love those grandiose introductions, but I do want to say that the words of the day are so far nailed voracious. Two times offline there, so we're excited. But who do we have with us?
Well, hang on a second now. Kenny Smyers has got a secret agent on, and we have a third co-host this week for 2020. We're going to introduce Kenny's secret agent sidekick, Marc Petock Bond from Lynxspring. And for those of you who've been to the ControlTrends Awards, you will remember our first ControlTrends Awards in Dallas, Texas. It was a Bond theme, and Marc had the tuxedo on doing his best Bond. And he is the co-host of the ControlTrends Awards. Marc Bond, welcome to the show. We want to make sure our audience is shaken but not stirred today. Welcome to the show, big dog.
Hey, thanks, guys. Great to be with you, and thanks for taking my line. That's what I was going to do, shaken, not stirred. I'm a little shaken this morning, but not stirred. So anyway, delighted to be here, and looking forward to the upcoming award show at BB King's in Orlando. And I think it's going to be a really exciting time for us all. A whole different format this year, and for the listeners and viewers, come prepared to rock and roll to a Super Bowl extravaganza.
Nice. It is going to be the ControlTrends Awards Bowl, followed by the Super Bowl. We've talked about this a lot on the show, but it bears repeating because we keep getting questions. We're going to start early. The show will start at 5 o'clock prompt. There'll be some pre-parties, some tailgating parties by some of the platinum sponsors. And we can't give that away because if you know these platinum sponsors, they already invited you. 5 o'clock, we're going to start. We're going to have the award ceremony. It's going to be a ControlTrends Bowl theme. Wear your favorite football paraphernalia, your favorite team gear, whatever. And then at 6:30, we're going to be finished with the ControlTrends Awards in time to bring in the Jumbotrons to BB King so we can all watch the Super Bowl together. It's going to be the biggest Super Bowl party in Orlando. So February 2nd, the ControlTrends Awards is the place to be. How do you get there? Easy. Just give us money. That's all it takes. So you can either become a sponsor, and if you're not a sponsor, then our sponsors are the ones with the tickets. So reach out to the tickets. And for your sponsors, make sure to do this now. Okay? So last sort of shot detail here, people keep asking, when does the voting stop? The voting stops, I think it's January 27th. So you still have time to vote for your finalists. And guys, what do you have to say about that? Big party? It's going to be a big party or what?
Of course it is. I do have the rough draft of our program. And as you can see, this is a black and white copy, but we are really getting excited, and we are taking the best of both worlds. The ControlTrends will still be doing a most serious thing to recognize the heroes and the people that make our industry what it is. And again, we're using that football analogy. We've got a lot of new players from overseas. We've got a lot of exciting solutions that are coming from the IoT side of the world, from the Silicon Valley or wherever you want to say the IoT world lives and resides. I know Atlanta's turning into an incredible thing. I know that where you're at, Marc, up in Richmond, there's a lot of real heavy-duty IoT companies that are using this cloud capability to come into our world and make an impact, whether it's energy analytics, whether it's data, mining and whatever. But so a lot of new players to use our reference with football on the field this year, and it's going to be exciting because we're going to transition from that kind of serious industry event into just pure fun. We got just a tailgate set up within BB King. The food, the drinks will be rapid, and there'll be a lot of it, and it's just going to be kind of a good time. Enjoy the ambiance. In other words, you're not even have to change your seats. Like you said, we're going to wheel in 270-inch screens. They're actually going to be pre-positioned now. As we work with the AV team down there, we're learning more and more about how the easiest way to do stuff so it's not disruptive between the transition between the CTA Awards and the show. Or, I'm sorry, the Super Bowl. So, and then what will happen is there's a big screen on the stage. So you're right. It's going to be a Jumbotron style. You're going to be able to see. There's no bad seats in the house, in other words.
What do you think, Marcus?
No bad seats, good food, good camaraderie. And somebody told me that you, Eric, are the guy who's the bookie. You're going to be taking bets. And
isn't it a twist?
We can.
Now, listen, Marc. I've had my drug test, and I will not touch it with it because for those of you who don't know, Marc Petock's official role this year is he is the commissioner of the CTA Awards. So, hey, you know what? He is going to periodically test you, and if you haven't had enough alcohol, you'll be forced to drink more. If you're not having a good time, it could be a 15-yard penalty and a fine. It's our 8th Control Trends Awards. Marc, you've been there since the beginning as the MC. Have you seen things change? And what's it like for a vendor being at the Control Trends Awards?
Well, let me answer the first part of the question. One is I see it the change get better, and better. Not only the time and the venue and the event itself, but also the categories and the types of technologies, products, services, and the people that each year are new via the nomination process. So there's always some stalwart, industry technologies from all of us in the industry, but there's always a lot of new technologies. And, we've been Lynxspring has been a major supporter since the very beginning of the Control Trends. And we could not think of any better place in which to be a part of, again, supporting the industry, what it's all about, the awards, and its unbelievable value for the investment that we make. So, and I'm sure the rest of the supporters probably speak the same as I do. And it couldn't be a better venue to support and all come together.
Well, thank you, Marcus. And again, thank you for Lynxspring support over the years. Also, thank you to Haystack Connect. You guys have been a sponsor as well. And it is the feel-good event. It really is. We get together, we have a great time. We recognize our superstars. Really and truly, Kenny, I obviously like to be on camera because we are every week, but at the Control Trends Awards, we turn the camera on to the superstars of our industry, and we try to give them the due recognition that they deserve. And it's, again, I think we have some spots left. If you're still interested in getting involved, we still have some sponsorships left. It's a great marketing investment because you're around people that are having a good time. It's goodwill. People know that none of this could happen without our sponsors. So again, special thanks to our sponsors.
We don't, Eric, I certainly second that. We can't do without sponsors, and some of the stalwarts of the industry have stepped forward and made sure that we needed that support early on. Marcus was one of the first guys from Lynxspring that really helped us and gave us some of the important people to network with and get this thing off the ground. But the unique aspect of this particular Control Trends Awards is back in 2012 when you and I had our preliminary talks about the industry and where we were and how we had no museums. We had no champion, collection point of what people have done over fabulous careers. You talk about the great innovations, the great inventions, the great, the Halliwellers, the Johnsons, the Siemens, the Landis and Gear, these guys that have gone back, they're all names that come from, real people that started the companies. KMC, they started out in their backyards. Contemporary Controls, George Thomas started in his basement, for God's sakes. These are really legendary tales. And you came up with a great idea about, the baseball teams have the National League All-Stars, the Pro Bowls, and I researched it. And to the best of my knowledge, there had never been any kind of a museum or recognition for the HVAC building automation industry. And we decided to do it. And to have the Super Bowl land on the same day as the ControlTrends Awards, to me, is a very, interesting, outcome, because that was what we were trying to do. And here we're actually having the event on the same day as the biggest event in football, where I don't know how many, was it 300 million people watched the Super Bowl? Some extraordinary amount of people. And, it collided, that intersection we always talk about. It's like IoT, OT and IT. We had that concept, that dream, and it actually is hitting on the day of the Super Bowl. So I thought that was very
right. No, couldn't agree more. And I'm going to switch back to Marc here in a second. But, it's one of those things, Kenny, that, you and I started this. We had no idea how we were going to do it. But we just sort of had the intuition if we just started that things would open up. And I mean, the first thing, originally the original plan, guys, was we were going to shoot it with a green screen in my office,
right.
In my warehouse. And then somebody came up and said, hey, how do we sponsor this? And we got involved. And then Marcus reaches out and goes, hey, I want to help you guys. And without Marc, I don't think it ever would have happened. And, so it's grown. So things have sort of evolved, and they continue to evolve. And I wanted to shift back to Marc for a reason, because we, I think one of the great awards you can be honored with is the Peacock Award. And Kenny and I, when Marc got involved, he helped us so much. There was that spirit of somebody that's a fierce competitor, but at the same time does what's good for the industry. He helps other people. It's a unique quality in any industry. And so we came up with the idea for Marc to have the Petock Award every year. So Marc, real quick, tell us a little bit about the Petock Award. Obviously you're not going to tell us who's going to win it this year, because this is something you decide.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us about the Petock Award, and what do you look for in a Petock Award winner?
Well, first, again, thank you guys. I'm humble and, obviously honored that you guys even thought about that. But, again, this industry is not made up of individuals. It's an ecosystem, and we all try to work together. And that was the genesis of this whole thing, is helping each other out. And yeah, we are fierce competitors, but at the same time, we are friends. We're people who want to continually contribute to the industry. So people who are out there in the industry, who are willing to give them upon themselves, not to just their company, but to others, who, speaks, who likes to talk about the industry, where we're going, where we've been, and those types of things. But the main thing, again, really is that you're part of the industry. You're not a lone wolf, that you're part of the pack. And so I've been thinking about it, and I've got several good candidates. No decision has been made yet. And I think this year of all is probably one of the toughest years, because there are so many good people in our industry. And that makes me feel good, because again, that's what I'm passionate about, is, growing our industry and us talking, making our industry bigger than life, just like you guys. And I mean, again, if it wasn't for the two of you and ControlTalk now, the ControlTrends Awards and so forth, we would still be kind of this, this industry, controls industry, who cares? People care now. And I think in the big scheme of things, we're bringing new companies to the industry, new technologies, new solutions, which are all exciting, and it challenges us all. And then more importantly, what we've talked about, and you guys have talked about on this show many times, is attracting new talent to our industry. And I think this definitely helps push that along, if you will.
Well, thank you very much. And I can tell you that it was one of the most prestigious moments of my life, and special moments last year when you shocked me. I almost fell over dead. I was listening to your award or the citation there or whatever, and I'm thinking, God, that doesn't sound like anybody I know, or it's me.
Nice.
And it was, I was quite a delightful surprise. So thank you again for that. But you're hitting all the buttons that we wanted to talk about, because it's so important. And again, the Young Guns thing, that again, it started out kind of as a whim, not a whim. It's a bad choice of words. Ken St. Clair had the Young Gun concept, I think, with electrical engineers or something, and when Eric and I were wondering how serious it was, because in our day jobs there's constant searching and everybody's raking through the coals trying to find a gem or somebody to get started in the building automation world, the HVAC world. The person or the man or the woman who gets a little bit. We talked about Nicole Conklin 2 weeks ago and how she started as a receptionist, but she had such great, she was just a thinker. She reacted. She loved challenges, and next thing you know, she kept growing in the industry. So many of our young people that were successful had no intentions of coming into the control world. It's just serendipity or it was like a last choice. In many of our cases, it's a family business that you're born into and you never really leave. But we needed to start marching. We needed drum beats to get people to come. And I do agree with you that Control Trends has certainly attracted its share of young people that they could see there's something more to it. I mean, I remember trying to explain to my kids one time what I did for a living, and it made no sense to them. I sell controls. Well, what's that? Things that push air and water through a building. Well, don't machines, isn't that equipment? I said, yeah, but there's there's a gap between the equipment that's being bought and put into a building and the people that put it in. And it's very difficult to explain, but it's an important job and the career is well paying, but we still have a critical shortage of people.
Well, it's absolutely true. And well said, Kenny, and well said, Marcus. And I've got our first guest teed up here. We talk about the evolution. I think, we started, 4 years ago, honoring the great women in our industry. When we talk about a shortage of, people in our industry, the women have been really stepping up. Nicole Conklin was on. She's a finalist for this year's ControlTrends Women of the Year. We got such a great group of women that have been nominated as finalists for this year's awards. Our next guest, who I talked to earlier in the week, boys, is Dannah Hagerty. I've known Dannah for years. She's with Ntek out of Atlanta, Georgia. She's the vice president of sales and marketing there. If Ntek sounds familiar, that's the company young gun Brett Burrows works for. So, guys, let's take a little bit and listen to the interview that I had with Dannah. All right, I'm here with Dannah Hagerty from Ntek-Inc.com, one of the premier service contractors and master systems integrators in Atlanta, Georgia. Dannah, thanks for taking a few minutes to talk with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Eric. I'm excited about everything that's happening in the industry and really excited to be here talking to you this morning.
Well, it is absolutely amazing. So let's start off. Tell our listeners a little bit about Ntek and what you guys do.
Sure. Well, we're a mechanical and building automation contractor here in Atlanta. We work with a variety of customers, but really just try to help them find ways to operate their buildings efficiently, perform mechanical and control services, master systems integration, all things controls, and just try to be a good long-term partner.
Well, I think you guys are definitely that. I've known Pat Burrows, one of the founders of Ntek, since he first came to Atlanta from Cleveland. And, Pat has just been an amazing, amazing individual. And one of the things that really impresses me about Pat is he's really good at spotting talent. How did you and Pat get hooked up together?
Oh gosh, that's a funny story. So I agree. Pat's a one of a kind for sure. And my history goes back with Pat almost 19 years. This week had my 19-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Believe it or not. Thank you. But I actually got connected to Christy. So I know you also know his wife, Christy.
Yes.
She was looking for a sales person. And at that time I had interviewed with her, not knowing it was in this industry. But wound up connecting with her and had a good conversation and met Pat. And I guess you can say that the rest is history from there. Yeah, but both great people, great owners, great leaders, and just solid. I've probably been there as long as I have because of Pat and Christy.
Yeah, well, they're just really, really good people.
For sure.
What were you doing before you got in this industry?
Believe it or not, I just did other types of sales. I was in advertising. So similar to this industry where you're selling a concept, my role was to oversee sales teams in 3 states to help them sell concepts and advertising. So really different industry, but similar type of sale in that some technical information, but a lot of concept selling, solution selling.
Well, you and I have known each other for quite some time, and I think we're sort of cut from the same cloth when it comes to sales, because I like to say sales is the easiest job in the world to do poorly, and one of the most difficult to do correctly. Meaning it's super difficult to be good at it. Agree or disagree?
100% agree. I think there are a lot of ways that salespeople get a bad rap, but there's a lot of things that you have to do well, and it's a lot of moving parts at one time. So you can be really good at one part of the sales process and not good at other pieces, and really still be unsuccessful. So I like to say sales is almost like looking in a mirror. You have to constantly be changing what you are doing and what you're changing to adapt, particularly in a fast-moving environment like building automation. So if you're not doing those things and really have a finger on where your strengths and weaknesses are, it can be a real detriment to being successful. And those salespeople that are successful are, I mean, they're rock stars for sure.
Well, they are, and I couldn't agree more. And what makes it interesting too is you got the technology is changing so rapidly here, and Kenny and I talk a lot on the show about the fact that we got all this great technology and all these great companies, and it's like if you don't have a great product, you're not even in the conversation. If you don't have competitive pricing, you're not even in the conversation. If you don't have great customer support, you're not in the conversation. But there's so many companies and vendors out there that have all those variables. And Kenny and I are sort of fond of saying, so what makes the difference? And I really think now more than ever, it comes down to the sales rep, the person that's interacting with the customer for numerous reasons. First of all, you got a lot of competition, but secondly, I think the thing we battle most is time and attention. People do not have a lot of time to squander, and they don't have a lot of attention. So if you're the one who can communicate in a way that they can get it quickly, understand their needs, then you're going to be the differentiator in that process. Are you finding that to be true?
Absolutely. I think the more information that our prospects and customers have today, the harder decision making is. In addition, there are more levels to those decisions than there has been in the past. The advent of that technology has given information to people, but not necessarily the value of that information to people. So they have a lot of data and information that they don't necessarily know how to qualify, and then there are more decision makers in that line of chain of command. So having a salesperson that can boil those things down and really help them understand the value of the ones that matter, the pieces that matter, and then how to drive that process forward and really just link arms with them and be their partner is huge. In addition to just the relationship aspect, if you get to know your customer and know what they need and really what their goals are, your job is so much easier, and then they know you're on their team. So I think that makes a huge difference in the advent of technology. I think it sounds like a great thing, but too much information can be a bad thing.
Oh, I think too much information right now is probably the number one paralyzer. I mean, it used to be, probably back when you started, I know definitely when I started, I mean, if you had technical knowledge, that was enough because there was a lack of people that really understood the technology.
Sure.
So if you could come in and talk bits and bytes and blinking lights and sort of wow them with your knowledge, you were in like Flint. I mean, that was a differentiator. But now if you're doing that stuff, because you hit on something, there's so many different people involved in the decision-making process, you're going to get shut out. You're never going to get back in if you waste their time. So,
Absolutely.
And I think what makes it interesting too, for me, Dannah, is it's, everybody you talk to is a little bit different. And so one of the things you do, and I think one of the reasons you're up for Woman of the Year is not only have you been out in the field and you can actually do it, but now you're in charge of sales at Ntek. So you're also bringing salespeople on and training them and managing them and leading them. So talk a little bit about what makes a good salesperson from your perspective, or maybe another way to phrase the question would be, what do you look for when you're hiring a salesperson? What are the characteristics, and we'll go from there.
Okay, that's a great question. I do think there's a wide variety of sales skills out there, and let me first say I'm the lucky leader of a group of sales ladies at Ntek that are just phenomenal. Speaking about women in controls, they knock it down week after week, and so they make my job easy. But I do think you have to look for the right person, and you have to look for the fit of the company. That of course is very important. But in terms of salespeople in general, I really look for attitude more than aptitude. I believe a lot can be taught. Certainly the technical aspects of the product knowledge, your sales processes, those things can be taught, for the right person. But if you have somebody that's smart and they're hungry and they're intelligent, and they have a good attitude, you're on the right track. I do look for somebody who has some experience in sales. A related product, is always great. And it's got to be solution sales. So there's a big difference between product sales and solution sales or service sales. Just in terms of that relationship building aspect.
Well, say a little bit more about that, because I think
Sure.
that's a key distinction right there.
Okay. I believe in the product sales, and I've sort of done some of both in my history. In the product sales, you do need to know your product really well, but it's a lot. The lines are a lot harder. In solution sales, I feel like they can take you all over the board in terms of where you go, having more decision makers. You wind up doing more prospecting and outside sales than you do sales coming in through your doors. So the function of the salesperson is a little different, as well as how they go about their day. So it's a little bit of a skill set in different ones. So it's similar to inside or outside sales. I know a lot of great product sales reps, and they do a great job of in what they do. I work with them. I purchase product, of course, but I think that's for me personally. I look for somebody who's done a lot of relationship building. They've done a lot of prospecting. They know how to hunt and qualify good customer leads, and can just be a good team player. We do have a very strong team concept at Ntek, which is one of the things I love about working there. We've got to be able to work really well with everybody and really plug in. And, one of Pat's philosophies is if you're going to work, you need to know how to do everything. So if you're a technician, you need to know how to change a filter and know when their control's a problem. So the sales, is no different. You might need to handle with some collections at times. You might need to get with your customers about, things that they need on the billing side or so there's a lot of different functions that they need to be able to do. And I think it's easier in a sales environment if you have you only have one role. Maybe you're the prospector,
Yeah.
but finding somebody who can do all stages of the sales process is very hard.
No, I just got to hop in. It is
Sure.
because I've got some just incredible sales reps that would rather get hit in the head with a 2x4 than go out and prospect. I mean, they really would. But if you can ever get them in front of a customer, they're great at uncovering the needs and the follow up and so on and so forth. So it's almost like. But then I've got other folks that, I mean, they can prospect to the cows come. They just won't take no for an answer. They know how to get in. They know how to have people like them. And I wonder if that's just a reality because, our global control trends committee would be interested. Maybe people reach out in comments and tell us to find somebody that can do all of that. And I know you're one of the ones who can go out and prospect and then just do the whole process. I am too, although I'm not that great technically, but I know enough to get technical people to help me. But it almost seems like, because again, here's another challenge. I don't know whether you find this or not. For us to get a technical sales rep up that can be effective. I mean, we've got $250,000 dollars invested in them, right? I mean, at least just to get them trained. So you can't really necessarily incentivize them by putting them on commission, right? Because, when the economy's good, they love it. When the economy goes bad, you're in jeopardy of losing them to somebody else because of money. But you can, that person that you're sending out to go set the appointments up and prospect, you can incentivize them differently, right? Because it's a different sales that you put them on commission for the number of meetings you get set up or whatever, and then turn the process over. But I know your salespeople. I think you have done a great job of finding people that can do all of the above. But are you seeing more of that sort of just not just with Ntek, but sort of across the industry?
Yes, and I think it's across industries in general. I think it is our world is so segmented that it's broken apart in so many different pieces. I think sometimes that can be detrimental when you lose the momentum of the prospecting and what's involved in getting in front of new customers. That sometimes doesn't translate into the relationship that's built for the long-term account. So I think there are good and bad things about breaking the process apart. I certainly think you can incentivize each part of the process. I happen to be a fan, for good or bad, that I think the more somebody can do in those processes, the better long-term result it is for the customer. And that's just how we're structured. We're structured for long-term partnership. So we're not, trying to, we stick with our clients longer than probably most contractors. But if you can have somebody that can do, more than one process, that's a win. I think as you get into the siloed part of the sales processes, when you do break them apart, it's real easy to get lost. And to have people who, like you said, are just their skill sets are really focused on that one particular task. Whereas sometimes you can grow them in those areas. That's one of my philosophies is, what do you want to do in your sales world, and how can we grow you in those skills? Because that makes you a better overall salesperson. So if that's possible and they can grow into those other areas, everybody wins. It makes them more money. They're happy. Customers are better served, and so that's a really good place to be. So I think it's as technology continues to move forward and grow, we'll see more segmented processes, not less. But again, that's what I think about salespeople really good, is that they can do more of those processes and not get lost.
Brilliant. And I'm going to talk a little bit about your process for developing your people here in a second, but you just something stuck in my head there, which is as salespeople get younger, and more importantly, as clients get younger, your customers, how are you seeing social media sort of affect, how you approach and deal with customers? Meaning, with people that I'm used to dealing with, I mean, you could go in, they like to sit down, they like to talk. Are you finding that some of the younger people are going, I don't want to talk to you, send me a text, let's communicate via Instagram or something like that? Are you seeing changes there, or do you anticipate those changes?
That's a great question. Yes, the answer is yes to both. I do see them wanting more information up front. Certainly, they've already Googled you and your product and your company.
Yeah.
They know a lot about you before you get there, which is good. I would prefer that customers do their homework and have, we can have a second level conversation in that place instead of that first, meet and greet. So that's I think a nice change to the industry. But I certainly see the younger people are more interested in, give them the sound bites and do it quickly. And so if you can formalize your marketing content or your sales, information that's appropriate to that level, of the sales process, if you have to touch them, so many times, then at that point you can get further with it. I think the social media is important, but I think it's like anything else. It still can be too much. So you have to be careful about. I know you're great about with Controls Trends, putting out valuable content at the right interval. People can see what you're really wanting to see without too much information. If you put out too much or too little, you just kind of get lost.
Yeah.
So I think it's a trick to balance it all. And you made a point earlier which I thought was great, and that is that there are a lot of different types of people, different levels in their companies, different age groups. So as a salesperson, you really have to adjust and be able to work with each of those groups and really kind of meet them where they are with the information that they need.
Very well said. Very well said. Well, one thing a little about you, Dannah, and you and I have talked over the years. We've known each other a lot of these 19 years that
Yes.
you've been at Ntek. And, you and I, usually when we get together, and one of the first things we talk about is, well, what book are you reading now? What are you up to? I know you're a voracious reader. You're a studier. You're constantly trying to improve yourself. So what are you reading today? What's been your latest?
Well, believe it or not, I'm kind of going backwards. I have a couple of staples that I just always keep around, and I feel like they're good, solid, reads. One of them is a book by Daniel Coleman, and it's called Emotional Intelligence.
Oh, yes.
I believe as we move forward in our industry, certainly in sales, emotional intelligence is something that is lost in technology. So especially I have, teenagers, so I can say this, if they have their phones in their face, they're not very emotionally intelligent in that moment. So I tell them if they'll, be emotionally intelligent, they'll be unicorns. So that's probably one of my favorites.
Well, let's back up a second on that, because,
Sure.
I know exactly what you mean by emotional intelligence. Some of our community might not. So
Okay.
sort of break down, just give them a 10,000 foot overview of what emotional intelligence is. And I think
Sure.
once you tell them that, they'll understand why it's so important.
Absolutely. So there's IQ, which is is your brain power, and then there's EQ, which is really more about emotional intelligence, and it's really the ability to see what's going on outside of you and adjust and respond to that in a way that is meaningful to the person that you're speaking with, but also helps you in relationships across the board. So if you're able to be empathetic, if you're able to understand the perspective of the person that you're speaking with, able to see what maybe their goals are, or really just hear them. I would say in a bullet word, if you can really hear what that person's saying and then adjust, that really raises your emotional IQ quotient. And studies have shown that the emotional intelligence function is really more important than IQ. So it's being able to get along with people, understand concepts, cooperation, collaboration. Those sorts of things are huge in, I know they're buzzwords in corporate America, but on a bottom line, they make a difference in how well your team functions, how satisfied your customers are, whether they feel the value of your company, those those sorts of concepts.
Well, no, God, you just hit on just brilliant, because the value of the company. I mean, again, if we get back to the sort of the theory that there's a lot of great products, a lot of great solutions, a lot of great, prices. I mean, the differentiator, how do people value a company? And I say that a lot of that, especially in this age of technology where everybody's doing the Google stuff, it's the relationship they have with your sales rep. So, I
Yes.
think it's huge. And this emotional intelligence really plays into that, because if to connect with technology, send the text and all, that's part of it, but be able to sit down and have a conversation. And actually the bane of salespeople, I think you and I would both agree on this, is we all talk too much and don't listen enough. And I suspect
100%.
you, like me, the first thing you're trying to teach a sales rep is how to listen and how to ask better questions. And so
Absolutely.
how do you train your folks to do that? I know you probably got a process for that.
Well, in terms of listening, I think it is related to each sales rep. Some sales reps are naturally better than others. They got lucky. But yeah, salespeople have a lot to say, which is, how the world moves. When we talk about sales processes and really honing in on those skills, one thing we really talk about is, ask good questions. It's really, listening is important, but you have to be asking the questions that are going to garner the answers that are important. So if you're really, again, listening to your customer, helping understand what their goals are, not just to sell your product, but to be a good partner to help them do what they're trying to do, then if you're asking those good questions, the answers are easy. You just have to be quiet and shut your mouth. As well as I do, and I agree, we're on the same page a lot of times about functions and sales theory. You can talk yourself out of a sale as well.
Oh,
So that's a key point, I think, for salespeople is, knowing when to just close your mouth. And be effective and again make the other person feel like you're hearing what they're saying.
Right. No, agree. And a good rule of thumb, I think you might even told me this somewhere along the line, Dannah, is you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that should be the ratio of listening to talking.
If you're, if salespeople are going in to speak to customers and prospects and not uncovering their needs, and not really looking for the need behind the need, which is probably a whole nother podcast, then they're missing it. They're missing it. And honestly, they're leaving things on the table in terms of information that can change how that sale progresses and ultimately whether or not they win.
The reason most people lose sales is not because of price, it's because the client doesn't feel like you understand them.
I think you hit on a great point. If you don't mind, I'd like to
Yes.
dovetail onto that. I think you mentioned if the customer doesn't, understand what you're doing, I think that's a huge point. Price is always a factor, but if they don't trust you, none of those other things matters. So if they trust where you're going and what you're doing and what your product is, they like you, there's the factors that have to be in place, then I think the sale's more likely. But certainly it's not about price, and anybody that says it's about price hasn't figured out how to work on value yet.
Yeah.
And that might be I think that a lot of salespeople get stuck in that rut of really thinking it's about price.
So tell me a little bit about sort of how you sort of manage your sales force and lead your sales force. Because I know like you said, you've got an awesome group of people, and I attribute a lot of that to you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's that, like I say, they make my job easy. I think I'm probably I'm probably the most unusual sales manager in the world. I don't need to see my team. I don't need to see all the reports. I don't want to sit in a meeting on Monday and have them go through all their leads. And I really don't manage that way. I would say I'm lucky to not manage that way because Pat doesn't manage me that way. So, I'm grateful that we're not super, spreadsheet driven. However, at the end of the day, sales is about the bottom line. It is about making sure the company's healthy. That's my role, is to make sure we're all moving in the right direction. So I manage individually. I meet with my reps a couple times a month. We do meetings out in the field. We'll go see our best customers. We will, go through numbers and challenging jobs if we need to. But they always know they can call, text, write. I'm always available. So I think I would say probably because I was a sales rep in the field for so long, my perspective is a little different than your traditional sales manager. And I've got some high-powered salespeople. I'm not chasing them around; they're chasing me down, to ask me questions about leads and sales. So that makes my job a lot easier.
Well, I was the same way when I was in sales management. Having been in the field, it's like I can just bring you in and talk to you, and I can tell whether you're hitting it or you're not hitting it. If you're
Yes.
not hitting it, I mean, we've already hired you, so we know you've got the ability. Then it's a lot for me was about, okay, what's going on in your head? Did you get rejected? How do we fix it? Going
Right.
in the field with them and going and seeing clients tells you everything you need to know. Switching gears a little bit, tell us a bit more about Ntek. I mean, for customers who might want to engage your guys' services, like I said, I can just give you guys such great recommendations from knowing Pat all these years. But you guys do national accounts and all kinds of other stuff, right?
So Ntek is a company that has two divisions. We have a building automation division that's here local, and we do controls installs, master systems integration, cybersecurity, dashboards, analytics, you name it. We're into all things that are controls related. We do some controls nationally. That's for a different industry, and then we have our mechanical service division. And so we also do chiller replacements and boiler installs and large mechanical equipment retrofits, small PM contracts and installs. We say if it moves air or water, we'll work on it.
Nice.
So we tend to stick to those things that we do best, and try to stay out of those things that maybe are not in our wheelhouse.
Well, and you guys do a great job of that. And our community might recognize Ntek from Brent Burrows, who's been on the show a lot, and Brent is one of the rising superstars in the industry, and Brent is actually Pat's son, so the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, so to speak.
Not at all. And I'm excited to work with Brent. I'm really excited to see what he's doing with you guys on the show. It's fun to see his perspective, and I've known Brent as long 19 years. And so it's fun for me to, see him grow up in the industry and really come into his own, and have a fresh perspective of what he sees. And you're right. He and his dad, sometimes I feel like they're carbon copies of each other, but it's really fun for me to work with them both. And a big part of our success as a sales team is really the success that we have with the guys in the field. I mean, we have some really sharp guys in the field, of course, Brent included, but they support what we're doing, and they are, good to help our customers succeed. So it really is a team effort, but it's fun for me to work with Brent and Pat both.
So Dannah, what's the best, if first of all, Dannah's up for Control Trends Woman of the Year. So if you like what you see, please vote for her. We're in the voting period right now. You can find a link to the voting ballot right on the side of the Control Trends website. Again, Dannah, what a great honor that your peers picked you out and nominated you and made the finalists for the Control Trends Woman of the Year. So really proud of you for that. Well deserved.
Thank you, Eric. I'm excited to see the ControlTrends Awards, continue to just be a force in the industry, and it's fun for me to see all people recognize, but it's certainly that there are women who are growing in the industry. So it's an honor for me to. I feel grateful to be nominated, and it's an honor to be a part of the group.
Well, Dannah, let's get you back on the show. I'd love to have you come on once a quarter, and let's talk about what's what in sales, what's working, what's not, because that's the other thing about the whole sales process. Like you mentioned earlier in the interview, it's always changing. People are changing, but you have to stay on top of it. And this emotional intelligence, it takes a lot of work. And even if you're sort of born with it and you think you're a natural born salesperson, you're not going to survive long if you're not constantly improving. So let's get you back on the show some more and talk some more good sales stuff.
I would love to do that. That would be a lot of fun.
But Dannah, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us.
Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on the show, and I'm excited to see you in Orlando.
We'll see you in Orlando. Hey, Dannah's going to be there, so come up and say hi to her and say hi to Brent. All right, boys. Well, I tell you what, Dannah, I've known for years. She is brilliant, as you guys can tell. And what do you guys think? Marcus, I mean, I know you're a sales marketing person too. How important is that role now in the age that we live in terms of having a good sales rep?
I think, to me, I think it's extremely important, because I think over time, the roles of the salesperson has changed. It used to be, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm Marc Petock, I'm your sales rep. What can I get for you today? How many do you want, and whatever. That's completely in the past now. It's more of that the person, and I don't like the word sales, a salesperson, because that person knows their client's business and they're there to be a consultative person.
Well said. Yeah.
To help that business. And it's just like, are they customers? Are they
friends, clients?
Yeah, that type of thing.
Right.
And versus a client, there's a difference. A customer is, I take your order and I'll get it to you and it'll be here next week.
Right.
A client, again, you know the drill. So.
Right. Well, and as Dannah said in the interview, it's gone from selling parts to selling solutions. Yeah. And I think that's right on it. Right. And Marc, you've done this, and so I think you're a really good one to address this, because you've been from the C-suite down to the boiler room. And, as Dannah and I discussed, I mean, one of the worst things you can do right now if you're super technical is to talk technical to the wrong people. Their eyes are going to glaze over and they're just going to leave. So I want to ask a specific question. When you're looking for people to represent Lynxspring and you're hiring them, what do you look for in a rep these days?
I think, for us, it's, again, keeping in mind that we're not selling products, we're selling solutions. And they can conceptually understand and have the ability to converse and explain what a solution is, and that's number one. But more importantly, how are their listening skills? In other words, listening to the challenges, listening to the people, the clients or prospects that they're talking to, and then being able to reiterate that back to them, and then being able to put together a solution or a group of solutions to satisfy their challenges and or requirements.
So when you guys hire now, I'm sorry, Kenny, I want one more question for Marc. So when you guys hire now, I mean, because I know in the not too distant past, I mean, you hired technical skill, and then because being technical was enough. If you were good technically, people would just buy from you because you knew what you were saying. But again, we got so many different people in the buying process now. Do you look for somebody that's good technically and then try to train them on how to communicate well? Or are you looking for somebody that's really good, effective communicator and then teaching them the technical stuff?
The latter, communicator, then teach them the technical. But at the same time, though, that if it really starts to get in a real in-depth technical discussion, then for us, we bring in a technical sales support person who really knows the technical side and starts, having that conversation, or will add to it at that particular point in time. We don't want our salespeople out there talking the technology and it be incorrect, if you will. So we support them that way. So we have that's how we do it. And I think many of the other companies in our industry probably do it the same way.
And so to hire people that can fill those, to know what the old world was about, the legacy systems and how business was done, because you might not be talking to somebody your age. You might be talking to somebody 10 years older, 20 years older, and also you might be 10 years younger, 20 years younger. So it really requires a range, I think, of talent. So that when you're talking about being able to communicate, that's got to be the most important thing. Being able to read, what they say, hit the golf ball where it's lying, be able to sit and understand what needs to be said and done, and when not to go technical or when to bring that, throw that down, that you do have that competency.
You just don't show up one day and say, let me see the facility manager or walk in or whatever. I mean, everybody's time is valuable. But I think there are so many tools, but I personally believe one important tool that just sales in general, no matter what industry, people have gotten away from, is the good old-fashioned telephone.
Yeah.
And that we rely on texting, emailing, and whatever. Like, for example, when people try to sell me, I get, like all of us, many, many emails every day. And, some of the beginnings of that email, I don't know you from Adam. Why do I even want to talk to you? You're trying to reach out to me, and I understand you're trying to be productive. Pick up the phone. Chances are, if you don't get me on the phone but leave me a voicemail, I'm going to call you back, because I think you went the extra mile to try to reach out to me and start a communication process with me. Whether or not I'm interested in buying your product or not, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'll tell you, Eric, Kenny, thanks for the call. I greatly appreciate it. But, we're really not in that type of business, whatever the case is. I do appreciate you reaching out, or, now's not a good time, let's plan on talking in a month or two or whatever the case is. And I think we got to get, I'm not saying that's the only tool, but I think that needs to be in a sales, part of the relationship tool bag.
I couldn't agree more, Marcus. And I tell you what, I for one, because I get a ton of calls, and if they get past the first 10 seconds with me, I'm listening because I'm trying to learn. If it captures my attention, I want to learn what they said and how they said it. Because as we were talking with Dannah, I mean, sales is the easiest job in the world to do poorly and one of the hardest to do correctly and do well, because you have to be so precise with your words and your sequencing and everything else. So, but hey, speaking of that, guys, because we could go on and on about the sales, but I think the theme this week is more, we're talking about the Women of the Year, and we had Nicole Conklin on a couple of weeks ago. We had Dannah on just a few minutes ago. Marcus, we have Erin DeFries from Lynxspring is up for the Woman of the Year award this year. Tell us about Erin, if you would.
Yeah, Erin is, I'm going to describe her in one word: unbelievable. And that really describes Erin. Erin is engineer by trade, and engineer by trade for this industry. That I go, Erin, let's go for a walk at AHR and go look at stuff. And she finds that so exciting, and she can't wait to go and talk to me. And again, look at this thing in this chiller or this boiler or whatever the case is. And for us, she came on board in our engineer, as one of our application and engineers. And we've recently promoted her to head up our professional services group and providing engineering services and application development and things like that. She's been around, and I put her up against anybody in the industry with respect of knowledge base, coming up with solutions to challenges and things like that. So we're delighted that she is recognized as a finalist. And, it's nice to see the women in our industry. By the way, Erin's also up for Best Technical Support Person, representing Lynxspring. And then also, which this year were new to us too, is with respect to women, is the Control Executive of the Year for Small Manufacturer is Melissa Deswaz. I can never say her sorry, Melissa. Melissa, who we recently appointed her as president of Lynxspring, and she's wonderful. She's been in the business for a while, and so we're delighted that we've got two strong women in our organization who have been recognized in the.
Well, we met Melissa. She even got Terry to cut his hair, right? Terry Swope.
I'm not going to say that. We're not going on that one.
All right. No, Kenny, you remember meeting? We met Melissa. Remember was it AHR, I believe, or was it HR? Or was it
Realcom?
Yeah.
Oh, I was very impressed. Because she came from the finance world. So the interesting thing about her was that she understands, how to make. How to. I remember when she was showing us the new products, and she was telling us about you asked her what her secret powers would be if she wanted to be, if she was a superhero, what would be the superpower that she would want to have? And I think it was to read people's minds, I think, or see through things or something, because she was so perceptive. Was that you've got to have the cart and the horse aligned correctly to be successful. You can't have the cart out in front of the horse, or you can't have the horse dragging an empty cart. And so her big thing was to get everything lined up within the organization.
Yeah, she sounds great, Mark. It sounds like you guys moved you to some new headquarters too.
Yeah, we've got a lot of exciting things going on at Lynxspring. So yes, we are just end of last month, December, and obviously beginning of this month, we moved to brand new headquarters, brand new building. And it represents a very big expansion for us, about 25% more space than what we had previously. And we're really excited about it. We're still in Lee Summit, Missouri, and all contact info and everything is, as you can imagine, is the same. other exciting things, towards the end of last year, we launched another derivative of our Genesis Edge 534 Edge controller. And this particular derivative of it is connects into a series of Monit sensors. So what we've done is we've taken the base structure of the Niagara-powered Genesis Edge 534 and with 34 IO in it, and then put a Monit gateway in it. And now it talks to a series of Monit sensors, because sensors, you know, as you both know, and obviously the listeners and viewers, sensors have become a major new part of our business, if you will. More sensors to capture data, feed data, and do things with that data. And you know, with ASHRAE coming up, we will be showing our portfolio of what we call edge-enabled products powered by Niagara. And part of that also is the fact that what we're seeing is this what we call now one platform, many IP possibilities. And, you know, I encourage people obviously to come by, and you'll see how the traditional vertical architecture in a building for controls is changing and going horizontal. And so the whole IP area, edge enabled, is changing the structure of that traditional building architecture.
That's really cool. Kenny, I think Monit wasn't it that sensor company we saw a couple years ago when they were at, again, Rocom, Ibicom?
Oh, yeah,
with
yeah.
the little different colored sensors and all that, really small, really cool looking sensors. Is
Well,
that
they
it,
probably,
Marcus?
yeah, it was definitely it. And they were just coming out kind of, I think they came from some DOD type of environment where they were in the heavy industrial and heavy duty stuff. They had a very reliable frequency. You know, it was one of the most powerful wireless sensors, and they did it all. They did vibrancy, you know, for bridge monitoring, for load bearing issues. They did humidity, temperature, acoustic. I mean, they had everything. The problem was, and I think Lynxspring has taken a very serious heads up advantage, and that was to get that gateway so that it was more Niagara friendly. In other words, when they first came out, it was hard for them to get into the BACnet world, whatever communication limitations. But by going into Niagara and having a gateway that takes all of their sensors and brings them into, an easier integration, it's going to make an impact. Wireless had its day, but then all of a sudden it couldn't get past that next barrier. It couldn't, because of all the problems with the steel and barb and windows and bouncing off. But they've come a long, long way, and Monit is a very, very interesting option. So I think it's going to be very successful, Marcus.
Yeah, Marcus, well done.
Kenny, you make a good point. We're seeing too that the increase in wireless, in other words, when you talk to the end users, building owners and operators as well, is that they're looking more and more for wireless solutions and things like that, especially as 5G is, make slow, but it's starting its presence. And then in the near future too, Wi-Fi 6. So you're starting to, wireless used to be, we can't do that because of what you just said, Kenny. But now the reliability and everything is much, much, much more improved.
Well, absolutely. And again, hats off to Lynxspring. You guys tend to stay ahead, in my opinion, and are one of the leaders when it comes to adapting these new technologies. So it's good stuff with that. Talk a bit, if you would, about some of the other things. Kenny, what else is Lynxspring up for? They're up every year for like Vendor of the Year and Best Tech Support. Do we have any other people awards, Marcus or Kenny, that you can think of?
Well, Lynxspring's almost, I think, in 12 categories. I mean, Lynxspring has really earned its stripes. I think the 534 kind of put everybody on alert that there's a very serious, opportunity when you port Niagara into something that's, designed for equipment, that gives people the inputs and outputs they need to control their typical rooftop unit or their air handler or their fan coil unit. Some of the other folks have come up IO short, and then you've got to put an IO module there, which requires a power supply, and all of a sudden you're getting into things you didn't want to do. So by providing, a little bit more firepower on the initial allotment, the initial control, the 534, you've got there's been a lot of very successful applications where it's become a product of choice. But I think Lynxspring has really moved the needle with the building automation, the HVAC, the IoT, the peripheral vendor of the year. No, I'm sorry, that you guys you didn't make the finals on that one, but just about everything. Innovative wireless products.
And then to your point with the 534.
I mean, it keeps going. I didn't go through the categories to review.
No, exactly. But to your point is with Niagara and IP or whatever is this, one of the things that we've taken a stance on is, as I mentioned earlier, this edge enabled one platform, many IP possibilities. So we will have 3 derivatives of the 534, the base unit, the Monet, as we talked about earlier. And then in time for ASHRAE, we'll also have a 534 model with 4G capabilities as well. We have a downscaled one, a 514, which instead of 34 I/O built in, we've got 14 I/O built in, and they can be expanded. And then coming to the market soon, sometime later this summer, is the first ever Niagara VAV controller.
Nice.
So we're really excited about that. So you can see we're expanding and taking the Niagara, being able to port Niagara and offer a portfolio of Niagara IP solutions.
And just to revisit that, the innovative wireless product of the year, the impact solution of the year, the race to the small space solution of the year, the IoT product or solution of the year, the smart building automation control system of the year. I mean, so Lynxspring has really, really earned some stripes there to get up there with the more mature vendors that have always been the typical favorites. So congratulations.
Thanks. We appreciate. We're honored, and again, what I liked about especially the awards this year, there's some new categories that we all we talked about. And the excitement of all the people who were nominated and all the different finalists. And, I personally, and from Lynxspring, we wish everybody who's made the finalists good luck and all well-deserved. And
Marcus, anything else we need to know about Lynxspring? I know you guys could be at AHR. Encourage our listeners to go by the booth. Marc will be the MC at the ControlTrends Awards, or the commissioner, we should say, of the 2019 ControlTrends Awards. Anything else you got, Marcus, before we hop off?
No, other than also at AHR, myself and John Petsy are leading a session, one of the educational sessions on Project Haystack and Haystack 4. So just check the time and place for that. Encourage you to join there. And then the collaboratory again with our patron saint, Mr. Ken Sinclair, that he and I started this about 7-8 years ago in a cab coming from Chicago AHR.
I remember, yeah.
George Thomas will be there. John Petsy will be there. Martin Villeneuve from Distech, and several of us are just having a nice open discussion and whatnot. And hopefully we will agree on some things. Hopefully we'll disagree on some things. So that's about it. I think, I hope everybody will join us at the ControlTrends Awards and the good Super Bowl party afterwards. It'll be interesting to see who the 2 final teams are.
And who you got to say right now? Who you picking for the Super Bowl?
Well, since my New York Giants obviously are nowhere near this, I've gone to my secondary team, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs. Cool. So go Chiefs. We play tomorrow. And hopefully I'd like to see them be one of the representatives. And I don't really care who the other one is. I think it's just going to be interesting. We got some new blood out there for this year's Super Bowl. So it's
what about you, Eric? Okay, you got to put it up there, Eric. Who you got?
I think it's going to be the Falcons and the Giants at some point in time.
No, they can't.
I'm thinking. I'd like to see Baltimore, but I think it's going to be KC versus San Francisco. And I just think Andy Reid's due. I think Baltimore's great. It'd be great to see them, but I think it's going to be San Francisco. And then I think Kyle Shanahan's going to have a 34-point lead, and KC's going to come back and win in the last couple of minutes.
Oh, that's pretty good. I'm going to go. I see Green Bay and San Francisco struggling, and San Francisco winning, and I see Baltimore and Kansas City playing one of the best football games, the mini Super Bowl, and Baltimore prevailing. So I'm going to go with San Francisco and Baltimore.
Okay, and then last but not least, LSU Clemson. Who do we picking on that?
LSU.
Clemson, come on, boys.
I think that's going to be I'm hoping for a great game there. I don't care who wins. Gotta be nice to see LSU win, but I just want to see
LSU's
a
got
good
so
game.
much power. I've never seen. I mean, the passing and running. What a machine. You know,
They got
Both of those college teams could compete in the NFL.
Yeah, right.
They could play the Falcons and the Giants
and win.
Steelers
and Pittsburgh probably too. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a tail between our legs.
All right, boys. Well, listen, we got to hop off here. So, man, this has been another week on Control Talk, now your smart buildings videocast and podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back next week with some more fabulous guests. Remember to vote. The voting period is going on right now as we speak. You can get the link right on the Control Trends website. That's controltrends.com. Special thanks to our guests this week, Dannah Hagerty from Ntek and Marc Bond Petock from Lynxspring for being with us. And we will see you guys at AHR. We will see you at the Control Trends Awards. But with that, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant, and do something profoundly naughty this week.
Oh, indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, boys. Have a great week.
All right.
Well, there we go, man. Hey, Marc.